Vyadhikastataha Tatorvanascha chatvaras Tatorvanascha chatvaras Tesham brahmana uttamaha Tesham brahmana uttamaha Brahmanesvapi vedanyo Brahmananesvapi vedanyo Hyatano vyadhikastataha Hyatano vyadhikastataha Tatovanascha chatvaras Tesham brahmana uttamaha Brahmanesvapi vedanyo Hitatano vyadhikastataha Tatorvanascha chatvaras Tesham brahmana uttamaha Brahmanesvapi vedanyo Yatarnyo vyadhikastataha Mataji's? Tatorvanascha chatvaras Tesham brahmana uttamaha Brahmanesvapi vedanyo Yatanyo vyadhikastataha Tatorvanascha chatvaras Tesham brahmana uttamaha Brahmanesvapi vedanyo Yatanyo vyadhikastataha Tataha among them Varnaha classes Cha and Chatvaraha 4 Tesham of them Brahmanaha a Brahmana Uttamaha best Brahmaneshu among the Brahmanas Vapi moreover Veda the Vedas Jnana one who knows He certainly Artha the purpose Jnana one who knows Abhyadikaha better Tataha than him. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Among human beings, the society which is divided according to quality and work is best. And in that society, the intelligent men who are designated as Brahmanas are best. Among the Brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best, and among the Brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of Veda is the best. Please repeat. Among the human beings, shall we repeat? Among the human beings, among the society which is divided according to quality and work is best. And in that society, the intelligent men who are designated as Brahmanas are best. Among the Brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best. And among the Brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of Veda is the best. Purport. The system of 4 classifications in human society according to quality and work is very scientific. This system of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras has now become vitiated as the present caste system in India. But it appears that this system has been current a very long time, since it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Unless there is such a division of the social orders in human society, including the intelligent class, the martial class, the mercantile class, and the laborer class, there is always confusion as to who is to work for what purpose. A person trained to the stage of understanding the absolute truth is a Brahmana. And when such a Brahmana is Vedajna, he understands the purpose of Veda. The purpose of Veda is to understand the absolute. One who understands the absolute truth in 3 phases, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And one who understands the term Bhagavan to mean the Supreme Personality of Godhead is considered to be the best of the Brahmanas, or a Vaishnav. Tato vanascha chatvaras tisham brahmana uttamaha brahmaneshvapi vedanyo hyatanyo vyadikastata. Translation one more time. Among human beings, the society which is divided according to quality and work is best. And in that society, the intelligent men who are designated as Brahmanas are best. Among the Brahmanas, one who has studied the Vedas is the best. And among the Brahmanas who have studied the Vedas, one who knows the actual purport of Veda is the best. Amagyana Tivanandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Chokshom Litamena Tasma Shri Gravena Maha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhuttale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadatisva Padantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Karata Shvishari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So we are further discussing Varnashram Dharma. Which is a combination of Varna and Ashram. The 4 Varnas are Shudra, meaning laborer, Vaishya, meaning merchant, the mercantile class, a Kshatriya, which is the administrative class, which includes therein the what we know as the military and the police force. And then we have the Brahmana class, which is the priestly class, but moreover, they are the knowers of Brahman. The 4 ashrams are brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. Brahmachari is the celibate student. Grihastha is the householder. Vanaprastha is renounced householder. And sannyas is the fully renounced mendicant, traveling preacher. And sannyas is also the guru of the varnas and the ashrams as well. Within the Brahmana is described in Bhagavad Gita as samo damas tapas socham chantirajavamevacha jnana vijnana nastikam brahmakama svabhavajam. So samo means peacefulness, equanimity, tapasya or austerity, cleanliness, tolerance, simplicity, knowledge, realization, vigyan, realization, astikam, brahmakama svabhavajam. These are the qualities of the Brahmana. The reason that the Brahmana must be peaceful is that they are not subject to emotion. They are not subject to the whims of the mind and the intelligence. And similarly, they are described as dhammas, which is equipoised, Ausgewogenheit. And they are also described as tapa, austere. Tapa and tapa, chantir, ajavam, those 3 together, and socham, they're all related to the notion that the Brahmana cannot be compromised. So, to this end, a Brahmana does not accept money for devotional service. They accept money in charity, but generally speaking, they don't accept. Why? Because if they are dependent on a stipend from the government, then they are subject to corruption, or it becomes a greater risk. And arjava means simplicity. So their interests are not entangled with the Kshatriya administrative class or the mercantile class. That's the whole point. That they cannot be corrupted by bribes. They cannot be influenced. So where today do we have leaders that are not influenced by the by this corruption, by this money that's going in and out between the administrative class and the mercantile class? And we can say, practically speaking, it does not exist. It's all corrupted. Whether it's a constitutional monarchy, such as the United Kingdom, or Australia, or Canada, or New Zealand, or whether it is a democratic republic, such as the United States, we see that there is a confluence of money and power. And there's very crass examples of this, such as with the British royal family having fabulous wealth in their name. Some of it is not in their name, some of it's held in trusts, which ultimately they are the beneficiary of. So this actually is not the Vedic system. This is a degraded manifestation of the Vedic system, which of course had monarchies, absolute monarchies. But because of the corruption of the kings and queens, this was rejected in England. First around the time of the Magna Carta. It was 1248, like that. By the barons who had had enough of the corruption and the greed of the king, and said to the king, I think it was King John, that we need a piece of this. If we're going to fight for you and risk our lives and risk our lands, then we want to say on how things are governed. And so this was the beginning of Western democracy. From the, of course, not including the Greek democracy. But this was the beginning of the Anglo-Saxon democratic system, which then later created America, which then became the leading country in the world. So they tried to root out the corruption in monarchies by eventually getting rid of the monarchy entirely, which was the basis of the American Constitution. And so originally this was based on the idea that only white male landowners could vote in order to determine government. However, there were certain flaws in this system. Such as the fact that in order to run for a position of power, one has to accept money from lobbyists. And so this is where the rubber hits the road. And this is where the democratic system can become very compromised. But within this American system, the idea was that these Shudra Vaishyas, shall we say, because in Kali Yuga, virtually everyone is born Shudra. Kalo Shudra Sambhava. So many were landowners. The people that could vote were landowners. So they were Shudra Vaishyas. And this voting right, though, was then broadened. In all countries, it was broadened out to include women and to include others that did not own land. And so this formula was changed. Now we are seeing the failure of democracies around the world, in that many people feel that these elections are being stolen. And this is due to the advent, of course, of social media and search engines, that they're able to discover this information. But Prabhupada already wrote about this in his purports, and he stated that it's not that difficult to cheat in elections. And this is very topical now in the United States, that people are contesting elections. And people believe that there's been a wholesale failure in the democratic process. And of course, this happened recently in Germany, where they discovered a supposed putsch, coup d'etat, by arch-monarchists who wanted to reinstate the, is it Hohenzollern? Hohenberger? Bibera? House de... Sorry? Kreuzen. Wasn't it the family, was there a Hohenzollern? The Kaiser? Anyway. So they wanted to reinstate by force because they feel that the German government is not representing the interests of the German people. And as Ananda Krishna Prabhu was saying yesterday, when he speaks to so many people, they are dissatisfied. So many people are dissatisfied with government, very much disappointed. And this is because we have Sudras that are running government. And they're Sudra at best. Sudra is a compliment. Sudra means that they are following Varnashram Dharma. Sudra means that they are conscious of Krishna. So in this way, they're being flattered. So nobody can be happy when Sudras are running the state. Particularly when the Sudras are corrupt. And we're finding that further corruption with the collapse of the FTX blockchain exchange, that there was money being embezzled and paid to democratic leaders covertly. So people are extremely frustrated. They're in a very frustrating position. And then they can see the corruption going on, but feel powerless to do anything against it. This is, to say they're sutras again is, actually it's inaccurate. because more and more people are open to the idea that yes, actually we're being controlled by a demonic clique. And the quality of the demon is that they care not for the public, and they care not for their underlings, but they only care for their own sense gratification. And to this end, it is considered very sinful to kill or perpetrate violence towards an underling or an entity that is dependent on you. For a small example is that just by the fact that they allow animal slaughter in their laws and the killing of cows, they've already condemned their people to very severe karma. And in this way, they are perpetrating violence not just against the cows, but also the people in general. And as the sinful activity increases, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, so does the level of taxation. And so people are always wondering more and more, why is this taxation increasing? And the taxation is increasing because the sinful activity is increasing. In that even 50 years ago, there was some kind of Christian yajna. There was some kind of sacrifice or tapasya being performed. And that was in the forms of some restraint in terms of intoxication, though not much. But in terms of not taking very serious intoxicants. And there was restraint with regard to sexual relations, in that people generally observed 50, 60 years ago, they observed rules regarding marriage, that there should not be illicit sex before marriage, and that we found that generally people had a much greater feeling of duty towards the state, which is highlighted in the Bhagavad Gita as a form of worship to Krishna, in terms of it's the lowest form, but it is still, Krishna advises, if you cannot work for me, if you cannot think of me, if you cannot donate to me, then at least try to perform your duty, do your duty towards the state. And we see that people are becoming, so there's less and less feeling of the a duty, which is a symptom of the mode of goodness. And a greater tendency towards selfishness and narcissism. And this is becoming more and more prominent. As a consequence, people find themselves being dominated by cruel and avaricious, greedy leaders who simply want their property. Therefore, it is also predicted in the Srimad Bhagavatam that more and more people will flee the cities and go outside and if necessary, live on leaves and honey. So this is the situation. The divisions of work which are discussed in the purport are divisions and subdivisions. So within the class of Sudras which predominates in the world today, there are subclasses within that. And the reason there are subclasses within human society is because they're natural. You have people that are attracted towards education and higher knowledge. People who are somewhat noble and are attracted to administration. People that want to make money and be productive. This is the Vaishya class. And then we have people that are dependent on the other classes for some income. And these are the Shudra classes. So this is important point, I think, that I wish that I was told more about the subclasses, because I found it very confusing actually when I first became a devotee, and sometimes devotees would refer to the Shudra class as being, for instance, someone in the military would be referred to as a Kshatriya. But it's not actually accurate, because a Kshatriya has been trained and is aware of the Vedic system, is conscious of the Vedic system, knows how to protect Brahmanas, and knows why they must be protected. So it's not the same as we can't just say that military people are Kshatriyas, because often these military people would kill Brahmanas if they had a chance. So the subclasses exist. It's not an artificial imposition on humans by having these class systems. Yes. So the classes are also combined to facilitate the material modes of nature, in that people are conditioned by these modes, and this can be through birth or through upbringing. So genetics or how they are raised, nature versus nurture. So therefore, they need to be happily situated within a class of work which matches their psychophysical makeup. As Prabhupada puts it, Prabhupada uses that word, psychophysical. So therefore, those that are sattvic, more in the mode of goodness, are attracted to the Brahminical class. And to this end, this is why it is specifically mentioned in the purport that they are considered the best of the classes. And again, Krishna does not favor one living entity above another per se. But those that are particularly inclined to Krishna are given special attention. So the next class down is the Kshatriya class, and that is a mixture between goodness and passion. The Brahmana class is considered lazy intelligence, and the Kshatriya class is considered to be active intelligence. And so they must act. The Kshatriya must act. Very difficult for the Kshatriya just to sit back and watch something occur where they feel an injustice is taking place. The next Varna down is the Vaishya, mercantile, which is more passion and ignorance. And that is, there's a passion to make money, and the ignorance must be there because, generally speaking, there is often some kind of deception in order to get the maximum amount of profit. But Prabhupada says this is not considered sinful for a Vaishnav merchant to state that I'm making no profit out of this endeavor, and that he has to say that to make any profit. The fourth Varna is the Shudra class, which is also considered to be more in the lower modes. And that is service to others. However, for a devotee, Shudra really means working for someone else. So whether it's manual duty or not, the main thing is that it's the devotee is working for themselves. So what combination would that be? Well, that would be the combination of Vaishnav. Vaishnav Shudra means that they're working for someone else, which could be a non-Vaishnav. And Vaishya would mean a devotee working in Krisi Goraksha Vanijam, Vaishya Karma Svabhavajam, that they are working in cow protection or other forms of business. A Vaishnav Kshatriya would be working in administration, such as they're attracted to doing administrative work in a temple. So naturally, the ultimate aim is to be able to understand these various categories and subcategories in order to ascertain or determine which area of work one should be involved in Krishna consciousness. And in this way, dovetail these psychophysical disposition into Krishna consciousness. And in that way, perform the best kind of duty happily for Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments? Additions? The biggest danger really is that one may begin to do a service or work or a job outside of the immediate community or the immediate temple vicinity. But because it is separated from the temple, and because the living conditions are so difficult for anyone with a full-time wage, and many people have 2 full-time wages nowadays. So the husband and the wife will both work, and still they are struggling to afford the rent, the motor vehicle which is required to travel to work, the food, the electricity which is going up. It's another form of tax through mismanagement of government. And they are so suddenly, so entangled in the material world that they cannot give, or feel they cannot give, any yajna to the deity in the local temple. But Krishna says, yajna atat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhara tad atam karma kuntaya mukdasangasma acha. Work done as a sacrifice of Vishnu must be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Karma bandhana means bondage by karma. So Prabhupada was very strong on this point. It's that it's actually one becomes entangled by karma. Even if he's devotee and he's chanting 16 rounds, this yajna has to be performed. Otherwise it is binding. So this is obviously a difficult, controversial subject matter, but this is my understanding of Prabhupada's purports, Prabhupada's letters. Prabhupada insisted a high percentage should go to the temple, not because the temple needs, not because Krishna needs, but the devotee needs it for purification. There also the problem is that it's really risky, because if that yajna is not performed, then the material energy can gradually pull those devotees away. To this, for this reason, Om Vishnu Pad, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj stated that it is best to rent a property. If it's going to be too much endeavor, and nowadays it's extremely difficult, particularly where I come from, the housing is ridiculously expensive, considering how much land we have. And still there's so much land in Germany too that's obviously owned, but there's still, when one travels across the country, there's a lot of space. Same in France, there's a lot of space. But nevertheless, because of the powers that be, the land is extremely expensive, and one has to work 20, 30 years to pay it off. Not just pay it off, but they pay it back, and then they pay back 1.5 times more on top of that because of interest. So it's a hellish system. In the Vedic times, the Kshatriyas would simply provide people with land. And the people would pay 25% taxation, and that was it. That was it. That's all they had to pay. So people in such a worse position nowadays, that if they are giving 50% goes to paying off a mortgage, Then they pay taxation as well. So first they're taxed 50%, pretty much, with taxation on alcohol and the hidden taxes on alcohol and tobacco, which are even more inflated in Australia than here. It's the most one of the leading tax rates in the world for this. So 50% goes to the government, then 50% goes to the banks, and then people have to live off the remaining 25%, because everyone must own a house. So in this way, Maharaj states that it's best to rent and don't try to purchase. But of course, if you can afford, if you can do it, then that's good. That's very nice as well. But also, the idea of renting reinforces the notion in one's mind that I need to depend on Krishna, and that I don't really own anything. Everything belongs to Krishna. Yes. So just think how much easier life would be if we were guaranteed property and we just gave 25%. How much happier the world would be. Not that we have this huge, burgeoning administrative class with tens of thousands of people dependent on the taxpayer for their livelihood. And they're effectively parasites in terms of what they do. So parasitic in nature. And why we have this? Because we have many leaders that are also parasitic in nature. And that is the demonic mentality. So this is our mission in order to reinstitute the Varnashram Dham, the Vedic system, where people can be protected, happy, and not exploited. Hare Krishna. Last opportunity for questions. Hare Krishna. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're saying that the times have changed dramatically since you were a little girl, and that particularly with regard to people being obedience, and also the idea that people felt a little more protected that police were on the street. There used to be policemen patrolling the street, and one could feel safe. But this is all going away now. And yes, so people are not encouraged anymore to make sacrifices for the country and their family, which is good. These are good ideas. This is getting towards the mode of goodness. And in this way, as I mentioned, it just appears that more and more people are... If you look at World War I, for instance, in World War I, people were very chauvinistic in terms of, at least they felt some loyalty to their country and they were willing to fight. And I'm not saying that the wars were justified, because we know that was just generally for territory and resources, but that's for the leaders. At the lower level, at least people were willing to sacrifice, that their hearts were more in the mode of goodness. And they were willing to make sacrifices. And in the Vedic system, Kshatriyas, that's what they did. They sacrificed their life for the king, who was enforcing the Vedic principles. But nowadays, people have lost so much faith in the government. That they're not willing generally to go, and more they're becoming mercenaries. They simply join for the material benefit that are offered by the military, such as a steady wage or some educational opportunities, or they don't have to be unemployed or die on the street. So the situation is becoming more and more desperate, more and more desperate. And as I said, the more people engage in selfish, sinful activity, the worse it gets. And actually, it's the job, it's the duty of the demonic class who worship in the mode of ignorance. Who worship, if they worship ghosts or spirits or goddess Kali, then their work is to promote sinful activity. And so, for instance, the satanic class of men, the Satanists, believe that the more they can increase sinful activity, and then the more power they receive. And practically we're seeing this is quite true. It's just like if you have a community who accept a drug lord as their patron, as their boss or ultimate authority. So the more he can degrade the leaders with drugs and other influence, the more powerful he becomes. And conversely, the more the devotees can make people chant Hare Krishna, buy Prabhupada's books, then the more powerful the devotees as instruments of Krishna become in the material world. So these are spiritual principles at play. These are the forces we're against. This is the divine nature fighting against the demonic nature. And that is the eternal struggle in the material world. So it's always nice to hear personal examples and experience of these points that are raised in class, such as the gradual decline in civilization, which more and more people are recognizing now. It's much different than it was 20 years ago. Much different. People are openly now calling people leaders demonic. I mean, that was unthinkable 20 years ago. So the situation's ripe for change. Anything else? Mataji. Mhm. Was getragen? Ja, genau, ja. Okay, ja, ja. Roche, ja. Wow. Wow. Was she religious? She was saying, I'll just translate. She was? Yeah, she was Catholic. And Mataji was just commenting that when she was a little girl and everyone was wearing dresses, that her grandmother noted that as soon as women start to wear pants, then everything is over. Everything is kaput. Yeah, great-grandmother, was it? Great-grandmother, wow. Yeah, so it's very insightful, and it's, again, it's another uncomfortable truth, but it's a fact that this pushing for feminism, which is really not really feminism, it's masculinism within women. Actually, it's anti-feminine, because they want to destroy the femininity in women. So it's not a feminine movement, it's the complete opposite. And they want to destroy the sacred feminine by forcing women to compete with men, and this way create chaos in the family. And from this chaos, the couples cannot stay together because of the conflict. And we are seeing this. This is reflected in the birth rates, the decline in the birth rates, which is causing other disturbances with immigration. So this is creating so many problems. And not only that, is the people are being cheated. I've got to be mindful of the time. I could keep going on this for another half hour with ease. Mitleichtigkeit. But the other big cheat, the big scam in this is that if you look at income rates in the 1960s, the families were so rich in the West that they owned a property, 2 cars. It was paid off very soon during this time period. And the mother was not working. Well, she was working. That's another lie to say that mothers don't work. It's the biggest work, it's the biggest contribution, it's the biggest sacrifice. It is the greatest service is to be a mother full time. It's tremendous service, and it's incredible work. So this is another lie to say that the wife's not working. That is work. It is the most valuable work. So what they've managed to do is to separate the children from the mother, or minimize the time that the mother can spend with the children. Force the woman to work as well. And now both the husband and wife earn less than what a man was working in the 60s and providing for the family. So how are we better off? How are we better off? And it's proven psychologically that children that come from a balanced family perform better in their studies, in their life, because they don't have these samskaras when they're young of this trauma of their parents separating, and they're dealing with this, and the absence of a father, the absence of a mother. These make these scar the children psychologically and make it much harder for them to adapt, to conform, and to become fruitful and productive. And obviously we don't want them to conform with the demonic society, but it's just a point that it's much harder for them to rise into the mode of goodness, or even to get into the mode of passion as opposed to the mode of ignorance. So practically we're seeing that people are worse off under this system. Yet the brainwashing and conditioning is so strong, which they've got down to a science. They have it down to an art form. That people still willingly agree to go into a worse situation. And now it's so bad, it's so advanced that people can't retreat. It's very difficult to retreat into a system whereby the wife need not work. I mean, work for pay, work for remuneration. So this is a form of madness. When everyone's worse off, the children, the wife, the husband, they're all worse off, demonstrably worse off, yet they believe they still have to support this system. That's crazy. That's completely irrational. Anyway, for another class, it's 9 o'clock. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Go Premanande.